Salut! In today's lesson, we will see one more object pronoun, and then we'll go over a little quiz to make you practice in the end. As I've said before, the object pronouns are going to be part of all our lessons in the future, so make sure you put some extra practice time on the last 4 lessons. Also, as usual, there's a link to download the notes in the description under this video on YouTube, so feel free to download them to follow along or to practice after watching this video. Alright, today's object pronoun is the pronoun en. As you already know, an object pronoun replaces an object in a sentence when we don't want to repeat that word. For example, imagine I'm making coffee and I'm asking you if you want some. I wouldn't say, I'm making coffee, do you want coffee? The repetition of the word coffee makes me sound a little crazy. What I would say is, I'm making coffee, do you want some? Now this is an example where we would use the pronoun en. But before we go over the pronoun en, let's remind ourselves of the pronoun e, because they're related. If we want to be technical about it, the pronoun en and the pronoun e are adverbial pronouns. On the one hand, the pronoun e is used to replace a preposition other than the preposition de and a thing, often a place. It is frequently translated as there in English. For example, je mange au restaurant, meaning I eat at the restaurant, becomes j'y mange, for I eat there. On the other hand, the pronoun en is used to replace the preposition de and a thing. The thing is often a noun preceded by an expression of quantity. Before I give you an example, do you remember what kind of things always use the preposition de or du or des? Because that's going to be most of our examples. Do you remember the uncountables? All these things that we need to measure but cannot count, like rice, flour, coffee, tea, money. You can have a cup of flour, but you can't have 3 flowers. You can have $3 bills, but you cannot have 3 monies. If you remember the uncountables using the preposition du for masculine, you are right, but remember that in French the preposition du is the preposition de followed by the masculine definite article le. De, le, in French becomes du. Alright, so going back to our pronoun en, it is used to replace the preposition de and a thing. For example, je mange du riz, meaning I eat rice, will become j'en mange, for I eat some. Again here, because it is an object pronoun, it goes before a verb. This is as simple as this. If we use the preposition de in French after a verb with a noun, and that includes du and des, we will replace that noun with the pronoun en. This doesn't apply to people or animals, of course, just things. If we use any other preposition after a verb to talk about things, it will be the pronoun e. Again, not people. This will usually be a place and translate with the word there, like we've seen in the previous chapter. But it can also be used with a verb like penser à, for example, which means to think about when something is on your mind. This is why we can say je pense à notre jeunesse, which means I'm thinking about our youth. But if we want to use a pronoun and say I'm thinking about it, we will say j'y pense. Now to counter-example this, you may remember that we can also use the verb penser with the preposition de. And we mean to think about, as in having an opinion. This is why if someone asks you, for example, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la jeunesse? It will mean, what do you think about youth? And you can answer any sentence starting with j'en pense que. Here the pronoun en replaces la jeunesse or youth, because the verb penser used the preposition de. Alright, this was the more complex explanation, using all the bits and bolts, but for our practice, we're going to focus on uncountables. The way this will work is I'm going to give you a sentence in French and you will have to figure out how to say it with an adverbial pronoun. This should be pretty straightforward. Here's the first sentence. Je bois du café. This means I drink coffee. Can you figure out how to say I drink some? I'll give you a second to think about it. Alright, the answer was j'en bois. The subject je becomes J apostrophe in front of the pronoun en because it starts with an E. That's why je en became Jean. En here Replace the uncountable coffee, of course. Now, before we get to our next example, you need to know that if we have a quantity with our uncountable, meaning a measurement or a container, we will need to keep that quantity right where it is, after the verb. For example, if I say measure 500 grams of flour in English with a pronoun, you will say measure 500 grams of it. Same in French, the flour will become the pronoun en, but you will still need to keep the information 500 grams. Alright, let me give you that one. In French, our original sentence is mesurer 500 grammes de farine. Now, because we use the preposition de in front of farine, our sentence will use the adverbial pronoun en, and it will be mesurez-en 500 grammes. Alright, now I'll give you a sentence like the previous one, but you need to figure out the answer with the correct pronoun. Here it is. Ils veulent une tasse de café, which means they want a cup of coffee. Now, how would you say in French, they want a cup of it? I'll give you a second here. Okay, the answer is ils en veulent une tasse. Did you guess that right? I think you're now ready for our final quiz. It's going to be 4 examples, and I'm going to make them a little bit harder, but I'm not going to give you the English anymore, just the French. That means that you need to understand what I say before you find the pronoun. I will still write the French below, but with a tiny delay, so you need to try to hear it first. Alright, let's get started. First sentence. Listen closely and then read below to see if you got it right. Je voudrais une douzaine d'escargots, s'il vous plaît. Now, pick the one with the right adverbial pronoun here. Here are 3 possible answers. J'y voudrais une douzaine, j'en voudrais une douzaine, j'en douzaine une voudrais. Which one did you pick? The correct answer was j'en voudrais une douzaine. Here the little d apostrophe in front of escargot was the preposition de, so you needed to use the pronoun en. Also, we had a quantity, so we kept the quantity right after the verb. Now, second sentence. Listen closely and then read below to see if you got it right. Nous allons boire de l'eau. Alright, now pick the one with the right adverbial pronoun. Here are 3 possible answers. Nous allons y boire, nous en allons boire, nous allons en boire. Which one did you pick? The correct answer was nous allons en boire. Here there was a little trick because I used the near future. The verb that relates to the water is to drink, boire. So the pronoun en must go in front of that verb, not our verb aller. Alright, third sentence. Listen closely and then read below to see if you got it right. Il se donne des frites. Now, pick the one with the right adverbial pronoun. Here are 3 possible answers. Il s'en donne, il en se donne, il s'y les donne. Which one did you pick? The correct answer was il s'en donne. Here there was a little trick again, because you also had the reflexive pronoun se. But remember that using the order of pronoun table we saw last time, the reflexive pronoun comes first always. Then, the pronoun se followed by en becomes s apostrophe en. If you're still unclear about the order of object pronouns, I made a new table in the notes this week, so make sure you check that out. It includes more cases and examples. Alright, our 4th and last sentence. Listen closely and then read below to see if you got it right. Je pense à la lune. Now pick the one with the right adverbial pronoun. Here are 3 possible answers. J'y pense, j'en pense, je la pense. Which one did you pick? The correct answer was j'y pense. Remember that I said that the pronoun y usually means there, but not always, and that it will replace a thing with any preposition that is not de. Here we had the preposition à and la lune, which is a thing, the moon. This is why we had to say j'y pense. Alright, that's it for today's lesson. But before I let you go, can you tell me in the comments how you scored out of 4 in French? We saw how to say out of 4 last week, so hopefully you'll remember. A quick reminder is that we see the smaller number on top of the bigger number, like a fraction. Also, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to post them there. And finally, I'd like to remind you to please like this video if you enjoyed it or if it was beneficial to you in any way, and to consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't. This can be done by clicking on the thumb up below this video or on the red subscribe button. In the meantime, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you on the next one. Au revoir.